Have you ever wondered why certain things happen with uncanny timing? Just the right moment, just the right person, just the right set of circumstances. Have you ever felt swept along by life, uncertain of what causes what, unsure of what's truly within your control? If everything happens for a reason, is it possible to actually see the threads that connect it all? In this first part of the journey, you'll be guided into the light of Buddhist insight, a way of seeing shaped by teachings on karma, interdependence, and impermanence. These aren't abstract ideas. They are powerful lenses that allow us to view our lives and the world with deeper clarity. This isn't about explaining life away. It's about learning to see life through the eyes of someone fully awake. Enter this chapter with an open mind. What you're about to discover may shift the way you understand your past, your choices, and the very nature of what you call reality. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing is random. This is the heart of Buddhist insight. Every event unfolds from specific causes and conditions. You arrive at a mountain monastery before dawn. The air is crisp, tinged with pine and incense. You've come with one question: why does life feel so unfair, so random? An old monk greets you with calm eyes and invites you to sit by a stream that runs through the temple grounds. For a while, you sit in silence, watching the water move over smooth stones. Finally, he speaks. "Nothing in your life is random," he says. "Everything that has happened, every joy, every sorrow, is the result of causes and conditions coming together." You hesitate. "But I've seen good people suffer and selfish ones succeed. If everything happens for a reason, where's the justice?" The monk picks up a pebble and drops it into the stream. Do you see how the ripples spread outward? That is karma, not punishment, not reward, just the natural law of cause and effect. He places a second pebble in your hand. "Now try to drop this one and make the ripples square." You smile at the impossibility. "Exactly," he says. "You cannot change the way the water responds to the pebble, but you can choose which pebble to drop. That's your freedom." As the sun rises, light dances across the stream. You begin to understand. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, they all ripple outward, touching people and places you may never see. The monk continues. "Sometimes karma ripens immediately. Sometimes it takes lifetimes. A tree bears fruit not when you demand it, but when conditions are right." He leads you through the garden, pointing out plants in various stages of growth. "Life is like this garden," he says. "Every experience is a seed. What you nurture will grow. What you ignore will wither. What seems random is simply a result of causes too complex for you to trace." As you leave, he offers one last thought. This isn't about blame. It's about empowerment. If your life is shaped by causes, then with awareness, you can begin to plant differently. You look back at the stream one last time. The water still flows. The ripples still spread. But now you see it, not as chaos, but as a quiet design. Nothing is random. Everything has roots, and you are free to choose the seeds you plant next. Karma is not fate or punishment. Karma is not about reward or punishment. It's simply the natural law of cause and effect. The morning air is cool as you sit with the old monk near a still mountain pool. You've traveled far, driven by a single question. If I try to live with kindness and honesty, Why do I still suffer? And why do those who harm others seem to thrive? The monk smiles, not in dismissal, but with the softness of someone who's heard this question many times. Most people misunderstand karma, he says gently. They think it's punishment for bad behavior or reward for being good. But karma isn't judgment. It's simply cause and effect. He picks up a small pebble and drops it into the pool. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles. You see? The water isn't punishing the stone. The ripples arise because that is what happens when a pebble meets water. You nod slowly, beginning to understand. Karma is the same, the monk continues. Your actions, your words, even your thoughts, they all create ripples. Not because someone is keeping score, but because life responds naturally to what we put into it. You ask, but why do some consequences take so long to appear? Some seeds sprout in days, he replies, and others take years. A mango tree doesn't fruit overnight. And sometimes, what you're harvesting now was planted long ago, by your past self, or by others whose actions affected your path. You pause, letting the weight of that settle. So, karma isn't fate. We're not trapped? Exactly, the monk says. Fate says you have no choice. Karma says you always do. The past creates momentum, but the present holds possibility. He places another stone in your hand. You cannot undo the ripples already in motion, he says, but you can choose the next stone you drop. As sunlight begins to shimmer across the water, you feel something shift inside. A loosening, a quiet relief. Karma is not a sentence. It is a mirror. It reflects not what you deserve, but what you create. And in this very breath, you are already shaping what comes next. Interdependence. Nothing exists alone. Nothing exists independently. Every person, every moment, is shaped by countless factors coming together. The forest is alive with quiet sounds. Birdsong, the rustling of pine needles, the rhythm of your own footsteps beside the monks. You've spent days in this monastery, learning to breathe, to slow down, to see. But one teaching still stirs something deep inside you. Nothing exists independently. Change the angle of the sun, stir the water, or move slightly, and the image disappears. He picks up a fallen leaf and places it gently on the water's surface. Everything in life is like this reflection, temporary, conditional, connected. You sit with this. All that we call self, our thoughts, emotions, even identity, arises from countless causes. Our upbringing, our biology, our language, our relationships, our culture. There is no fixed, separate you behind it all, only the unfolding of conditions. You look at the trees around you, the moss underfoot, the tiny insects crawling along stones. Suddenly it seems absurd that you ever believed you were separate from any of it. But if there's no solid me, you ask, then what am I? The monk smiles. You are the meeting place of the universe, a temporary constellation of conditions. Like a wave is not separate from the ocean, it is the ocean, shaped by wind and tide. You feel your breath deepen. Something loosens in your chest, not fear, but freedom. If nothing exists alone, he continues, then no joy, no pain, no action exists in isolation. Every moment ripples through others. This is why compassion matters, because what you do to others, you do to yourself. The pond ripples as a breeze passes. The leaf moves. Your reflection shifts. Nothing stands alone. Nothing arises without cause. And you are part of it all. Impermanence, everything changes. All things, feelings, relationships, successes, losses, are constantly changing. True freedom begins when we stop expecting things to stay the same. You sit beneath an old maple tree at the edge of the monastery garden. Its red leaves drift quietly to the ground, carried by a gentle breeze. Across from you, the monk sips tea, his eyes soft with understanding. "I know things change," you say, watching a leaf land near your foot, "but I still struggle to accept it. People I love, moments of peace, they never seem to last." The monk nods slowly. "That is because we want the beautiful things to stay, and we resist the painful things. But impermanence applies to both." He sets his cup down and gestures toward the garden. "Look around. Every flower, every cloud, every breath. You'll never see this exact moment again. This is the nature of life. Everything is in motion." You look, and suddenly you see it. A bee hovers near a blossom that wasn't open yesterday. A droplet of rain clings to a branch, just before it falls. Even your breath, rising and falling, is never the same twice. "Nothing you love will last forever," the monk continues. And that can sound sad, until you realize nothing you fear will last forever either. He stands and invites you to walk with him. As you stroll through the garden, he points to a cracked stone path. These stones used to be perfect. Time and weather shaped them. Yet now they guide your steps more gently than before. That's impermanence too. Not destruction, but transformation. You think of moments in your life that once felt unbearable. They're gone now. Some faded, some transformed into wisdom. And the joy you once clung to, that too has passed. But in its place came new experiences. The monk stops near a lotus pond. "Even this flower," he says, "blooms only for a short time. But in its impermanence lies its beauty. If it lasted forever, you'd stop noticing it." You kneel beside the pond and watch a single petal loosen and fall. You finally understand. Impermanence is not a problem to solve. It's the truth to embrace. And in that truth lies peace. Nothing lasts. Everything changes. And that's what makes this moment so precious. Wisdom comes from deep observation, not quick judgment. Like the story of the farmer who always said maybe, we learn not to label experiences too quickly. With patience and awareness, we begin to see the full picture behind life's unfolding. In the heart of the mountain monastery, you sit with the monk on a wooden bench beneath an old cedar tree. A light breeze rustles the branches above, and the scent of moss fills the air. You speak hesitantly. "I always try to figure out whether something is good or bad the moment it happens. I need to know, but I always seem to be wrong." The monk smiles knowingly. "Let me tell you a story." He begins. "There was once a farmer whose only horse ran away. His neighbors said, 'Such bad luck.' The farmer simply replied, 'Maybe.' The next day, the horse returned, bringing 3 wild horses. 'Such good fortune,' said the neighbors. 'Maybe,' replied the farmer. Then the farmer's son tried riding one of the wild horses and broke his leg. 'How terrible,' the neighbors cried. 'Maybe,' said the farmer. Days later, soldiers came to recruit young men for war, but passed over the sun with the broken leg. "How lucky you are," said the neighbors. "Maybe," said the farmer. The monk pauses and looks at you. "What do you think this story is trying to say?" You reflect. He didn't jump to conclusions. He waited. He let things unfold. The monk nods. Wisdom lives in that space, between what happens and how we label it. Most of our suffering doesn't come from what is. It comes from how quickly we decide what it means. You sit in silence for a while, watching two butterflies circle one another. One lands on your knee, then flutters away. "How often," the monk says, "have you judged something as bad, only to realize later it led to something good? Or labeled something as success, only to find it brought unexpected hardship?" You nod slowly, remembering many times. When you practice deep observation, he continues, you begin to see the whole river, not just the ripple. You learn to respond, not react. The breeze picks up again, scattering fallen leaves across the stone path. "Let life unfold," the monk says softly. "Let meaning ripen like fruit. The truth often reveals itself, but only to those who are patient enough not to name it too soon. And for the first time in a long while, you don't rush to interpret what that means. You simply let it land, like the butterfly on your knee." As this first chapter closes, perhaps something in you has already begun to shift, not through dramatic revelation, but through quiet seeing. You've explored teachings that aren't meant to be believed, but observed. That karma is not fate, but momentum. That nothing exists alone. That change is not the enemy, but the nature of all things. And that wisdom rarely shouts. It watches, it waits, it understands. This is not the end of your journey, but the foundation beneath it. Now you carry new eyes. Eyes that see patterns behind chaos, connections behind separateness, meaning where once there was only noise. Let these truths settle gently into your life. Let them inform how you move, how you speak, how you choose your next small step. Because from here onward, nothing is truly random, and everything, every ripple, every breath belongs.